Hello and welcome to the pre-reading update. This is primarily around how we're going to format our pre-reading going forward, so we're all doing it in a similar way. So let's start with why we're doing this. Well, there's been a change in process. So instead of each site pre-reading its own candidates and therefore developing a way that works for them and everybody on site does it the same way and it's all very internal, we've now changed to national pre-reading across all sites. So all doctors need to pre-read in a similar way so that no matter where you work, you are getting what you expect. When we moved from doing it locally to doing it nationally, it became clear there was a variation in how pre-reads were being formatted. And that was causing issues on some sites because the face-to-face doctors that were used to receiving pre-reading in one site were struggling with others. There was a huge variation in the amount of detail being included, how good the referencing was, and some pre-reads were really easy to follow and others weren't. So the site leads all had a conversation with VJ about what good looks like, and we agreed a reasonable common ground. And I've agreed to put this training package together to explain what that single common format is going to be going forward. If you're pre-reading for Lympstone, Hannah Briers will give you some more information because that's slightly different. So this is about pre-reading for the Royal Navy. A decision's been taken to standardise the style and format, and going forwards, we're going to be auditing everybody. So if you pre-read, somebody will be looking at the quality of your pre-reads against certain predefined criteria, and you will be assessed on how close your pre-reading format is to this agreed standard. There are lots of different ways of doing it, and I'm not saying different ways are wrong, but this is what PML wants us all to be doing. There is an audit template that will be used, and I'll share that with you. So it's all up front from the start. You know how you're going to be assessed. And there is a document that goes along with this set of slides that sets all this information out and also gives you some examples. So it's nice and clear. Everybody knows what they're doing. And going forward, everybody needs to do it that way. So let's take a moment to just step back and remember why we do the pre-read. We didn't used to pre-read ahead of time. Back in the day when I started, back when tellies were black and white, we used to pre-read the notes just before we called them into the room. So the candidates would get all the way to CPC and nobody had even looked at their notes. And we would then see all these PMU conditions, and it was then a very awkward conversation with the candidate of, I know you sent this in 6 months ago, but we've only just looked at it and we now realise there's no point you being here. Or there was missing information and it was too late to find it. Either way, the face-to-face medicals took hours. I kid you not, some took 2 hours. And that's not efficient. The Navy needed to get more people through CPC per week so they could fill up all their training establishments. So something had to change. And a decision was taken to separate out pre-reading from face-to-face medicals. So now we pre-read ahead of time and we write a short script, and that script is used at the face-to-face, which means it can be much quicker and slicker. And people who are clearly unable to join the Navy are stood down way ahead of time, much better for everybody. So the aims of the pre-read: check the vision meets the entry standards. If they're below VA3, they get 1 repeat, and if they're still below VA3, we refer to SEMC to fail them. Check their sickle cell status. Do they need a blood test or not? And if they do, we can then try and get that organised before they come to CPC so that they can run and we can give them an outcome. We can highlight any potentially PMU conditions and either be really specific about what information needs to be gathered to answer that question, or refer them to SEMC at pre-read to stand them down so they don't take a week off work, book a flight, book travel, and come to CPC. Really importantly, a key aim of pre-reading is to hasten, to speed up face-to-face medicals. If the MME doing the face-to-face medical has to reopen the notes and go hunting for a detail because you didn't copy it out, then that's kind of defeating the whole purpose of pre-reading. So if the face-to-face doctor has to go back into the GP notes to hunt down a detail, the pre-reading failed. We also need to give a clear timeline of significant events because one single entry often isn't the whole picture, is it? So if this has been building over time or it's a recurrent episode, we need that clear timeline of events, both for the face-to-face doctor, SEMC and OCMED. And if there are particularly relevant letters, scan results, or a GP consultation, then you need to signpost all the other colleagues to that one place. In order to focus our minds on what good looks like, let's go through the audit targets. Everybody loves an audit. So the idea is we will be measured against these 5 targets. So for each item that you wrote about, for each condition you wrote about, did you JSP reference correctly? And did you put in references to the correct part of the PHCR? So did you explain what you did and allow other people to follow you and check? Script. Now by script, I mean the script you are writing for the face-to-face doctor. That is what you are doing. You are writing them a script. Please check this. If that's okay, then pass. Please verify this. Is this still a problem? Have they fully recovered? So you are giving them a set of questions they need to ask their candidate, and you are helping them understand if the answer is this, then pass. If the answer is this, then PMU. Of course, we can open the JSP and look it up, but you're trying to help speed up the face-to-face doctors. So as far as possible, you can give them a hint. Obviously, if the JSP is really wordy and there's too much detail and it's more nuanced than that, just put a reference and say, then compare with reference. But if it's nice and clear, then make it nice and clear for us. Format. Were all the right items put in the correct boxes? And we'll go through the 3 boxes and what they're for. But the boxes are there to give the face-to-face doctors a hint. What's in the top box they don't need to worry about. What's in the bottom box is going to need referring to SEMC. What's in the middle box just needs a bit more information. It gives us a warning of what's coming and allows us to prepare and focus on the right areas. So you're going to be audited on, did you put the right information in the right boxes? Ease of use. So did you include enough detail that the face-to-face doctor doesn't need to open the PHCR? Same with the JSP. Did you include enough detail that we don't need to open the JSP? The face-to-face doctor might choose to open the JSP, of course, but if they have to open it in order to do their medical and move things forward, that's no good. So let's talk about JSP referencing. There's loads of different ways of doing this, and depending on whether you were taught by a Navy doctor or a civilian, you might be doing it differently. We need one truth. First of all, the JSP is set out in sections, and the section for pre-entry criteria is section 4. So if you search for a word in the JSP, it will take you into section 5 as well, because section 5 is almost a duplicate, but it's the in-service standards. So all the same conditions appear in 4 and 5. You've got to be careful that you're referring to 4, not to 5. If you're referencing every time, you'll soon pick that up, because when you scroll down to find your page number, you'll realize you're in the wrong section. Then we talk about how we reference. Now, the JSP has sections, and as I said, we are in section 4. Within section 4, there are different annexes that each have a letter. One's for cardiology, one's for respiratory, one's for ENT, that sort of thing. Within each annex, there is a number of pages. And the JSP, if you want to search for a page, you don't use the PDF page number. You search for 4 dash a letter dash a number. And that is section 4, which annex, that's the letter, and which number is the page number. Because that's how we're going to search when we go back in to find the reference you're talking about, it all needs to be written up that way. So let's work an example. Hay fever. Hay fever is in section 4, annex N, and it's on page 12 of 15. It's paragraph 36. At the bottom of that page, the reference for that page that can be searched for is 4-N-12. Section 4, Annex N, page 12 of 15. And then it's paragraph 36. If you write your reference as 4-N-12, and I'm trying to follow you in, I can copy that, drop it into my search function, and it will take me straight to the page. If you just write 4N12 without the dashes, I can't. And if you write 4N36 being the paragraph number, yes, that's strictly speaking accurate because there's only one paragraph 36 in Annex N, but I can't search for that. So let's all do it the same way. Section, annex, page, and then write para and the paragraph. Now, how much of the reference to use? Some MMEs prefer the whole reference to be copied over, the entire JSP text, so they don't have to look it up, it's all there. Others find that way too much information and it's too cluttered. I'm not really fussed which one you do. Use your common sense. If the JSP reference is 3 pages, I don't want it. But if it's 2 or 3 sentences, it can be really useful to have it copied over. So use your common sense. If it's getting really cluttered, if there's about 10 conditions and you'll be writing reams and reams and reams, you don't need to copy it all over. But if it's just one sentence, please do. If you're not copying it over, you need to be specific about what fact is missing. So if you look at something like the eczema guidelines, there's loads of bullet points. If you think they're breaching one of those bullet points, tell me. If you want me to check one of those bullet points, have they used their potent steroid ointment in the last 3 years? Have they applied it to their hands in the last year? Tell me. If you're not sure what's missing, tell me what you know and tell me what you're not sure about. Communicate with me. This is your way of communicating with the face-to-face doctor that's following you. So I don't mind how much or how little you write in terms of the actual reference text, as long as I can follow you. So let's talk about PHCR referencing. Some PHCRs are a doddle. It's one of those lovely medical records where there's a table of contents and all the consultations are at the top and there's a whole medication list and it's beautiful and it's dead easy. Brilliant. They're great, aren't they? And if it's a nice simple one, you can simply put GP consultation March 24 and I'll find it. But if it's one of those awful PHCRs where it's been scanned upside down, back to front, in a rainstorm, and you can see nothing, and the GP consultations are buried in the attachments because it's a transferred record and it's an audit trail or something awful, give me a clue. Give me a page number. If they have multiple PDFs loaded, which we know can happen, which PDF is it in? So what you have to imagine is that you've picked up on something, say Raynaud's, and I'm saying to the candidate, I'm really sorry, it says in your notes you've got Raynaud's. If that's the case, you're not going to be able to enter. Let's talk about it. And they say, I've never had Raynaud's. Then I need to be able to jump to the reference you're talking about to be able to say to the candidate, well, your GP wrote in February 23, whatever it was. So give me a roadmap to the piece of information you've used to draw your conclusion, please. Hurricane notes. Now, hurricane notes are all medicals. I think at Lympstone they're always labelled as hurricanes. Sometimes within the Navy we get old Capita medicals, we get DMAP records. It can be an absolute nightmare. If they've had a Royal Navy or Royal Marine medical in the past 3 years and nothing has changed, they've not submitted a change in medical circumstances and their RNMQ makes it clear nothing's changed, then that medical from within the last 3 years is still valid. They don't need another full medical. RAF and Army medicals don't count because they use different criteria. They do, however, still need prelims because they're joining a branch of preference that want up-to-date prelims. What's their blood pressure? What's their weight? Got to presume their height hasn't changed. They might have an up-to-date vision. So you might be pre-reading somebody who's on a medical. Just put in the 3 boxes, had a medical and the date, and where you've got that information from. See, file, whatever. Just steer me to it. And then put in a generic case note for the site lead and the leading hand to say, had a medical, what date it was, which explains why you haven't done a full pre-read. Some candidates don't have a PHCR. Now, typically, they're international overseas candidates, but not always. If they have no PHCR, you tick the box at the top of the pre-read saying no PHCR. What you will find instead is a template within their notes that's probably called something like telephone assessment 2. And it's not actually a telephone assessment. It's a video call on Teams, but we'll leave that. The PML nurse does a Teams call for about an hour with these candidates and walks through every single aspect of their health, getting their declaration. Have you had this problem? Have you had this problem? The reason they do it is to check for PMU conditions. So if somebody has a condition that out and out fails them, the nurse will refer to the med and hold list, usually me, and will say, is there any point in them coming? And I'll go back through the notes. And if I can find it's clearly PMU, I stand them down at that point. So some of them may well have had a med and hold review because there's something in there that's a bit not sure about that. If they look like their vision is below VA3, that will have happened. And if the MME reviewing the med and hold list agrees that they have a PMU condition, they will refer to SEMC to stand them down. So the telephone assessment has already been screened by the nurse, and if they were concerned, referred to MME and may well have been through SEMC. So you may see those kind of records. But the key thing for you is to go through it in a more detailed way to work out what questions need to be asked face to face. It's unlikely you'll find a PMU condition, but you might. If they are overseas and they are high risk sickle cell, they're probably going to be missing their sickle cell result because the Navy only accepts UK lab results and they're currently overseas. They can't have a UK blood test. They'll have it a few days before they come to CPC, hopefully. That's the plan. The plan is they're flown in the week before, they have their blood test, and by the time they come to CPC, we've got the results. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So when you're pre-reading a candidate who's not in the country, if they need a SCT result, it probably isn't going to be there. Email admin, and when you click high risk SCT, no result available, it will pop up and tell you how to do that. And then you need to pop something into the pre-reading free text to warn the face-to-face doctor, don't forget to check the SCT result. I didn't have one when I pre-read. Now, ideally, they should look back through your pre-reading, but let's be kind to each other. On a busy clinic, you don't want that to be missed. So just pop something in one of the boxes to say no SCT result. You don't need to send the candidate a missing information letter. Admin will sort all that. Let's talk about boxes. So there are 3 boxes on the pre-reading template, and they have different titles. When compared with the JSP 950 leaflet 677, they all start with that. The following conditions are within acceptable limits, require further information at face-to-face medical, or make the candidate potentially unfit and will be discussed with a senior. We're going to go through step by step what each of those boxes mean, because surprisingly, some of you are putting things in the wrong boxes. And the rationale behind these boxes is it's easier for the face-to-face doctor to know, don't worry about that, discuss this, you're going to need to refer this to SEMC. Again, it's trying to speed up the face-to-face, and if you put things in the wrong boxes, it can throw off the system. Box 1. When compared with the JSP 950, the following conditions are within acceptable limits. By putting something in this box, you are stating that you've checked the JSP, you've checked the healthcare record, and you are taking responsibility that that condition is within entry criteria. No one else is checking. Do not finish that sentence with, please check it's all recovered. Please. No. If you put it in this box, it's not being checked. You've accepted it. Don't put anything in this box that requires further information. So you write in this box the condition, the JSP reference, and the word accept in big capital letters. So it's nice and clear for everyone that you've put your brain to it and you've accepted it. And that's it. If you've got that wrong, that sits with you. Box 2 and 3 are going to be discussed by the face-to-face doctor at the medical. Box 2, the following conditions require further information. And box 3, make the candidate potentially unfit and will be discussed with a senior. So box 2 is face-to-face doctor to double check things, but I'm pretty sure it's all right. Box 3 is, I think this might be a problem. This needs to go to SEMC. And the face-to-face doctor then knows what the likely outcome is. Now, of course, they can discuss things in the middle box and realise they need to go to SEMC, and they can discuss things in the third box and realise it doesn't need to go to SEMC. You're not committing them, but you're giving them a heads up. So you need to write the script of what questions they're going to ask. You've got the JSP reference open, you've got the medical notes open, and you've read all the medical notes. You are the best informed person to have a feel for the context of this condition and what's missing. So box 2 might have questions like, ask candidate how long it lasted, was this multiple episodes or one long episode, have they fully recovered, do they still see the physio, have they wheezed in the past 12 months, do they ever wheeze with their hay fever, are they now eating a full diet, what happens if they actually eat that, all that kind of stuff. Please do not simply give a JSP reference and expect your colleague halfway through a face-to-face clinic to look it up, look at your notes and figure out what's missing. That is your job as the pre-reading doctor. You are writing the script. The job of the face-to-face doctor is to rattle through that script, refer on as necessary, do the paperwork for the outcome, tell the candidates their outcome, all that sort of stuff. The third box are things you think are potentially unfit and you're pretty sure are going to need to go to SEMC. It is very likely the text you put in here is going to be copied and pasted into an SEMC referral. So make it intelligent and helpful. You know, if it's a knee injury, give all the information they're going to need, steer us to the MRI, give us the story behind it. Yes, the face-to-face doctor will examine that knee and add on their examination findings, and they may clarify a couple of points about, I don't know, are you still having physio? Can you squat? Whatever it is. But the vast majority of the work has been done by you, and then you've written a script of a few precise questions to be answered, which might simply be examine, then query, refer. And then the face-to-face doctor makes the decision whether or not to refer that on. Failing at pre-read. Yes, absolutely, we can refer people for PMU at pre-read. But that stops the candidate having the opportunity to give more information face-to-face. So we're only going to do it if there's no chance there's anything they can say that will get them through. So some conditions are an absolute PMU. Severe asthma, Crohn's disease, type 1 diabetes, carrying an EpiPen, that sort of thing. So it's not like there are only 2 or 3 things that you can pre-read at PMU. If you're pre-reading and you find a condition, and when you look it up in the JSP, it's a PMU, finish the pre-read, and that is important because if this person appeals their PMU, the pre-read's done, ready for the medical, because some people will appeal and get the opportunity to come face-to-face, and then we don't have to redo the pre-read. So finish the pre-read and then refer for PMU. If you open the PHCR and they're a type 1 diabetic, there is no way, no matter what they say, they're coming in. So fine, there are certain conditions where you can stop pre-reading because it's an absolute, but they're actually very, very rare. So if you think, no, there's no point continuing, make it really clear on your pre-reading entry that you stopped, where you stopped and why you stopped. And when you refer to SEMC, put in that referral, I have not completed the pre-reading. Once I recognise this condition, I stopped. So if SEMC say, fine, can come face-to-face, admin can go into the notes and we'll read that and go, yeah, they haven't been pre-read, and it can be done again. A lot of these Pathfinder systems are searching for a pre-reading template, and if somebody has got a pre-reading template in their notes, they'll stop and they won't be pre-read again. So you do need to highlight that the pre-reading wasn't finished if that's the choice you make. If you want to refer someone to SEMC, don't refer by emailing Alan and Andy. They get so many emails and they take leave and it gets lost. Email the SEMC mailbox and somebody within SEMC will pick that up. If you put into the title, this is urgent, they're coming next week, it'll get picked up much more quickly. If you are doing a last minute pre-read, which hopefully will soon become a thing of the past, but if you are doing a last minute pre-read and they're due next week, please let the site lead and the petty officer or leading hand know, because they can then hound SEMC for an outcome and stand that person down as soon as possible. Let's talk about missing information. Sometimes you're pre-reading and you're comparing to the JSP 950 and there is a key piece of information the JSP 950 wants that isn't there. Very common with laser eye surgery. People say to us, I had LASIK 3 years ago, and that's all they tell us. And then we go into the JSP and realise we're going to need this, this, and this. So if you identify that there is specific evidence missing, but there's a good chance the candidate has it, so a private outpatient letter, their laser eye surgery information, whatever it is, then complete the pre-read, but we need to try and get that missing information, because the missing information doesn't stop them being fit to come to CPC, run, attend CPC and have a medical, but you know they're not going to get an outcome without that missing information. And they could come for medical and go medically on hold, but it's so much easier if they just bring that with them or send it ahead of time. So you complete the pre-read, the outcome is missing information, and then you write them a letter explaining what we need. And that letter has been called additional info, not missing info. So you're searching for the word additional, or you can search for information and it still comes up. So you write them a letter saying, I know you've had laser eye surgery, I need these specific things. And then you email PML admin to let them know there is missing information and you sent a letter. Laser eye surgery is an interesting one because they will often send you, or send the med and hold doctor, which is often me, a 180-page PDF of absolute nonsense. And for laser eye surgery, very specific information is needed. And in the document that accompanies this training, I have put in the JSP reference and simmered it down to a small number of questions. By all means, copy that text and start using those small number of questions to check what you've got. But we don't need as much information as you might think, but the information we do need is very specific. They will probably still just send us the 180-page PDF their eye surgeon sent them, but at least we've managed to filter down what bits of information the MME is actually looking for in that massive PDF. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that the level of detail required is debated and varies from person to person. So some people love detail. Give them everything. They want the entire JSP reference, they want quotes, they want the whole report from the MRI, they want the lot. Other people just want a few words. You're not going to please everybody. So site leads and I debated it and we agreed we're going to go for a fair middle ground. So put in enough detail that the person reading it has a fair understanding of the context, and then stick in the references for those that want the extra detail that's missing. If you've put in so little detail that we can't fathom if they're a pass or a fail or what information's missing, that's not okay. So just writing broken finger 2010, no, not enough, because the JSP 950 insists that a broken finger has to do, is it with or without fixation? What kind of Saltaris fracture was it? Have they got full function since? So you at least need to put broken finger, no fixation, full recovery. That's okay. So how much detail is too much detail is personal and varies. But I think it's fair to say if I've got to reopen the GP notes because you've put so little in, that's not enough detail. I thought a couple of examples might be useful because this is a little bit Goldilocks and the Three Bears, isn't it? Too much, too little, just right. Too little, low mood 2002. No, that's not enough. Did they try and commit suicide? Were they off work with a med-3 for 3 months? What happened? Did they get a divorce? Did someone die? No, that's just too little detail. I think we can all agree that's too little. Although I have seen that on some pre-reads. So just enough detail, that's debatable, isn't it? But had that low mood 2002 been single consultation, re-low mood, but declined meds, still at work, no deliberate self-harm, no talking therapy, no repeat consultations, 2002. Okay, now I've got the context. I mean, it is just low mood 2002, but that extra detail lets me know I don't need to delve any more into that. I've got all the information. You may well put that in the accept box, and I'd be with you on that, as long as it's a one-off. Another one, knee sprain. I've seen this in notes. Knee sprain 2015. No, first of all, knee sprain is not a medical diagnosis. Presumably it's a soft tissue injury. They went to urgent care and there was all the ligaments were intact and nobody really figured it out. Fine. Give me more information. So had that person written A&E report, knee injury, x-ray normal, no GP consultations, no physio, no T&O involvement, no MRI. Fine. So it was a soft tissue injury that needed no further follow-up, no further investigations. I'm with you. It was a mild knee sprain. And as long as there's only one, I'm not going to worry about that either. Of course, if they have 5 or 6 of those in a 5-year period, then I'm thinking, they're hypermobile. Have they got an unstable knee? And I may examine them differently. So I need a bit more information so I can be as reassured as you are. And that's it. Less than 30 minutes whizzing through how we're all going to format our pre-reading. This is not about who's good at pre-reading and who's not good. It's all about variation and trying to even that out to one format. You could be fabulous at your job, but really, really verbose, or fabulous at your job and so good at your job that 2 or 3 words you think is enough. And I'm just trying to even it out so that we all do it in a similar way, so it doesn't matter who's pre-read, we all know what's coming and where to find that information. There is a document that goes along with this, which has more detail in it and lots of examples and some sample text, because we all see eczema, asthma and UTIs loads. So that I've simmered it down to a few questions that you need to ask. And if you want to, you can copy and paste that text into something on your desktop and refer to it or use it in the future. I've also sent out the audit document so that you can see what you're going to be measured against. And it is very likely that people are going to be auditing you going forward to see if you've managed to stick with these standards and make sure you're not drifting off into your own way of doing things. If you've got any questions, talk to your site lead, talk to your peers. You know, we are all one team and we should all be doing it in a similar way. And if you think you're an outlier, don't be afraid to say to somebody, is that what you would have put in the situation? And if you're doing a face-to-face medical and you open someone's pre-read notes and it didn't work for you, you had to go in and redo it or recheck something, then I think we should be happy to feed back to each other. Obviously, if it's a one-off, let it go. We all have bad days. But if it's consistent that the same doctor is going off piste, then we should be able to approach each other and say, just to let you know, I've used a few of your pre-reads and I'm struggling because you're referencing, I can't follow your referencing, or I'd like a bit more detail on this, or whatever it is. We need to get to a stage where we can all talk to each other and communicate with each other without it feeling awkward or uncomfortable. Thank you very much, and I hope it was helpful.